welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking for you this evening. The Sensex and the Nifty end lower as financial stocks drag the markets. Mid-cap index snaps an 8-day winning streak. Metal stocks buck the downtrend.
I think we're going to have a deal with India, possibly, and that's going to be a different kind of a deal.
U.S. President Donald Trump hints at a trade deal with India with much less tariffs if U.S. companies are allowed to compete in the Indian market. India's top trade negotiator extends his stay in Washington as talks continue on the contentious agri and dairy sectors. The U.S. Senate passes President Trump's sweeping spending bill after Vice President Vance cast the tie-breaking vote. The bill now goes back to the House, with Trump setting a Friday deadline to pass the legislation. The bill is set to add $3.3 trillion to U.S. debt. More than 30 people killed in Gaza in the last 24 hours as Israeli attacks continue. President Trump says Israel has agreed to a 60-day ceasefire proposal, urging Hamas to accept it. More than 600 Palestinians killed in the last 5 weeks while waiting in queues for food assistance. State Bank of India classifies the loan account of Reliance Communications as a fraud, initiates action to report the name of Anil Ambani to the Reserve Bank of India. Ambani resigned as a director in the company in 2019.
We can't increase it beyond 49% because the minute you do that, then it becomes a PSU, which is not our intent.
Telecom Minister Scindia rules out any increase in government stake in VodafoneIdea, confirms that the Telecom department is evaluating Bharti Airtel's proposal to convert spectrum dues to equity similar to VodafoneIdea's. That's an exclusive. HDB Financial lists with a premium of 13% over its IPO price, delivers the biggest listing gain among public issues of over 10,000 crore rupees since the pandemic. Sigachi Industries says 40 people are dead at its Hyderabad factory after an explosion on Monday. The company's shares are down over 20% in the last 3 sessions. Airport services provider Dreamfolks speaks out after ICICI Bank and Axis Bank pull back on key credit card programs. The company blames 2 major airport operators for pressuring banks without naming them. Majority tax victory for global cloud-based software firm Salesforce. The Supreme Court dismisses the tax department's petition seeking to tax subscription revenue from India as royalty. Let's head straight to the day's market action. The Indian market ended with cuts today, with the Nifty slipping below the 25,500 mark. Nifty PSU Bank snapped its 6-day winning streak as well, ending about 1% lower. That's the Nifty Bank for you. The Nifty closing about 90 points lower, 280 points gone there on the Sensex. In the mid-cap index also closing lower today, down by about 80 points. Surbi joins us now to wrap up the day's trading action. Surbi, what was weighing on the markets today?
Well, it was a midweek breather for the bulls as the market has continued to consolidate so far. 3 sessions. The Nifty is now a little over 200 points off the high that it hit on Monday, which was over 25,660 thereabouts. So today we're talking about that weakness happening not just at the large cap index level, but even mid caps. Mid caps were subdued throughout, though the mid cap index did not fall as much as the Nifty. The advance decline ratio was still bad, and I'll come to the individual moves and shakers in just a bit. But leading the declines today was the financial part of the market. Financials and Bank Nifty in particular, it was down 1%. So let's start with the losers on the financial side. Shriram Finance, IndusInd Bank, Bajaj Finserv, HDFC Life, SBI and HDFC Bank themselves, all of these stocks, banks and non-banks, losing anywhere between 1% to 3%. So very clear weakness out here. But you can't just pin the blame on the financials of the banks, because even outside that list, look at L&T, look at RIL, look at some of the PSUs like BEL or ONGC. These stocks were down. Even some of the consumer names like Nestle, no real great shakes there, and a cool-off continued. Metals, however, were on the upper side. Now, when we're talking about the green side of the screen, so metals, perhaps it has something to do with the optimism on some sort of a trade agreement between China and the US, and also some talk about maybe production cuts happening in China supporting prices. But the ferrous stocks did really well. So Tata Steel and JSW Steel, they were the nifty winners for the day, gains between 2% and 3% in most cases. Other gainers included Asian Paints. Even as the Competition Commission of India launches its probe, Asian Paints saw some buying at the low, so almost 2% higher. Ultratech Cement had a good day. Maruti and Bharti Airtel were the other stocks on the green side of the screen. Now let's come to the mid-cap movers. Very, very different hues over here. So if you talk about the upside, then RITES was reacting very well to a contract that it won. On Tata Communications, there was a favorable brokerage note. That's why that stock was up about 5%. Sagility managed a fair amount of green as well. But then you also had stocks that were losing ground. Case in point would be Hyundai Motors. Numbers not very great for the month of June. Hyundai was down about 5-6%. Swiggy and RBL Bank, two more stocks on the lower side. A lot of buzz around whether there's a deal brewing with RBL Bank. Anyway, the stock ended about 4% lower. Going forward, the progress of the India-US trade deal, of course, is something that the markets will eye very, very carefully and keenly. And then we're waiting for the US jobs report. The ADP employment report numbers will come out on Wednesday evening. But the big report, the non-farm payrolls report, comes out on Thursday this time because Friday is a US market holiday. So that's where the markets will take their next cue from.
All right. Many thanks, Urbi, for joining us. And staying with the U.S., President Trump has hinted at reaching a deal with India, claiming it's going to be a different kind of a deal. Addressing reporters on board Air Force One, President Trump said that the proposed trade pact will entail much less tariffs if U.S. companies are allowed to compete in the Indian market. This comes amidst hectic negotiations between India and the U.S., with India's top negotiator extending his stay in Washington. Now, both sides are at a stalemate on the contours around agri and dairy sectors, including several others. Remember, a failure to strike a deal by the 9th of July deadline will attract 26% tariffs on Indian goods. So the hope is that we will get at least one installment, part one of a larger deal done with the US ahead of that deadline. Here's President Trump.
I think we're going to have a deal with India, possibly. And that's going to be a different kind of a deal. It's going to be a deal where we're able to go in and compete. Right now, India doesn't accept anybody in. I think India is going to do that. And if they do that, we're going to have a deal for much less tariffs.
Well, that's President Trump on the India-US trade deal. And Mukesh Aghi, President and CEO of the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum, says that the interim trade deal between the two nations is likely to cover at least 6,000 product lines, but Aghi believes the deal is unlikely to cover agri and dairy sectors, which are, of course, the big bone of contention. Take a look.
India, under the law, cannot allow GMO. So I think the government hands are tied. And we are trying to explain to the US government that let's not push hard on that area. Our feeling is that US will focus on getting first interim deal going and then focus on ag, dairy, and others in the latter part of the discussion itself. Our estimate shows slightly over 6,000 product lines, which both sides have agreed to move forward.
Well, that's Mukesh Aghi there. Now, President Trump has warned of imposing a 30 to 35% tariff on Japan if a trade deal is not reached between both countries before the 9th of July. Japan and the US are gridlocked over the treatment of the agri-industry. Japan's top trade negotiator said the country will not sacrifice its agriculture sector to seal a trade deal.
We have a great relationship, great reliance, and really a great sort of a partnership in a way. But on trade, they've been very unfair. And those days are gone. So what I'm going to do is I'll write them a letter, say we thank you very much. And we know you can't do the kind of things that we need. And therefore, you'll pay a 30%, 35%, or whatever the number is that we determine, because we also have a very big trade deficit with Japan, as you know. And it's very unfair to the American people.
Well, that's President Trump on imposing tariffs on Japan if a trade deal is not inked. Now, the U.S. Senate has passed President Trump's one big, beautiful bill by a razor-thin margin. After days of heated debate and an all-night session, Vice President J.D. Vance cast the breaking tie. The bill includes deep tax cuts, reductions to social programs, and major increases in defense and immigration enforcement spending. The bill could increase national debt by over $3 trillion in 10 years. The Senate bill removed a proposed tax on solar and wind energy projects, but will end tax credit for clean energy sooner than its previous version. It also imposes a 1% tax on remittances. The legislation is likely to face challenges in the U.S. House, where Republicans cling to a thin majority, and some GOP lawmakers already voicing concerns against the bill. The big corporate story back home, State Bank of India has classified the loan account of Reliance Communications as and I quote, a fraud. In a letter dated the 23rd of June, the bank said 3 show-cause notices have been issued to the company and that the name of Anil Ambani has been sent to the Reserve Bank of India. Anil Ambani resigned as a director of Reliance Communications in 2019. Ritu joins us now with more details. Ritu, take us through the reasons as to why SBI has arrived at a fraud classification for Reliance Communications.
That's right. State Bank of India has classified the loan account of Anil Ambani Group's Reliance Communication as fraud, and in a letter dated the 23rd of June, SBI explained it issued multiple show-cause notices to the company in the last year, and after reviewing their responses, its Fraud Identification Committee concluded that they had failed to explain the non-adherence to the terms of the loan, and they couldn't really justify the irregularities in the conduct of their account, resulting in the company's account being tagged as fraud. Now, SBI says it is now going to report both Reliance Communications and its erstwhile director Anil Ambani's names to the Reserve Bank of India. But remember, this is not the first time that the company's account has been classified as fraud. Canara Bank had done it in November last year, but then later the Bombay High Court stayed the move, citing the lack of borrower hearing according to RBI guidelines. Now, Reliance Communications on its part says that the company has been under the corporate insolvency resolution process since 2019, and the loans that SBI is referring to were taken before the process began. A resolution plan is in place and it is pending the final approval from NCLT, and that under Section 32A of the Insolvency Code, it is immune from prosecution for any past actions once the resolution plan is approved, and therefore it is seeking legal advice on the next steps. But SBI's reasons for fraud classification are quite stark. For instance, it found loans worth about 6,200 crores were used to repay other bank loans, almost 5,500 crores went to related party payments, another 1,880 crores was invested and quickly liquidated, suggesting the funds were not used for genuine business purposes, and so on. So there were clear red flags, and SBI said these transactions suggest fund diversion, breach of trust and manipulation of accounts, all of which happened under the watch of the company's management and its promoters.
All right, Ritu, many thanks for joining us. The big newsmaker this evening, Telecom Minister Scindia has ruled out any increase in the government stake in VodafoneIdea. Remember, the government stake currently stands at 49%. Speaking to Parikshit Luthra, Scindia made it clear that government has no intention to make VodafoneIdea a public sector company. The minister also confirmed that the Telecom department was evaluating Bharti Airtel's proposal to convert spectrum dues to equity, similar to what has been done for VodafoneIdea. But of course, in the case of Bharti Airtel, it would amount to a very small amount that gets converted. Take a look.
When it comes to further equity conversion, I think you've said earlier also that it's not as possible.
There cannot be. There possibly cannot be further equity conversion unless the government share gets diluted to lower than 49% to enable us to increase it back to 49%. Because we can't increase it beyond 49%, because the minute you do that, then it becomes a PSU, which is not our intent.
But are there other options being considered?
At this point of time, the equity option, increasing the equity option is not an option. As far as other options are concerned, there's not much discussion happening at this point. If there is, we will let you know.
Analysts have said that 2-year deferment of Vodafone AGR dues is the most possible thing that the government could do.
That is, as I said to you again, that is not for us to decide. That is for the management of the company to decide.
Right. Now, also,
I do not happen to be the CEO of Vodafone, and neither do I happen to be the CEO of BSNL.
let me also ask you about Bharti Airtel. Now, Bharti Airtel has also applied and made an application to you for equity conversion. The government seems to be considering this. What's your view right now? Has a call been taken?
The Department of Telecommunications is evaluating it. Once they evaluate it and they bring it up to me, then I shall exercise a view based on the analysis that has been done. At this point of time, they have not brought it up to me.
You've met representatives of Starlinks over the last few months. They've got one approval from the government. InSpace is waiting for them to respond to their draft, and they may give an approval soon. But finally, how long would it take to clear the decks for them to operate in India?
Well, I think that the process is on. They have to get permission for their satellite Earth gateways to be located in India. They've got to get in-space permission. They've got to get security clearance. And then they have to get spectrum. These are the major 4 milestones, if you will, to be able to operate in India. I am of the opinion that the sooner my Satcom companies operate, and by that reference I mean not only Starlink, whether it's OneWeb or it is Reliance Jio, I'd like them to offer services as soon as possible in as many areas as possible, so that there is a fair degree of competition for those that are not connected. And I see that happening, as I said, in the next couple of months. This process should get ironed out.
Well, you can catch that entire conversation with the Telecom Minister at 7:30 p.m. right here on CNBC TV 18. India's largest IPO of 2025, HDB Financial Services, made its stock market debut today. The stock listing at a premium of 13% to its IPO price of 740 rupees a share. The IPO witnessed strong investor interest, with the issue being subscribed nearly 17 times on the final day of bidding. HDB Financial's MD and CEO G. Ramesh said the company is ensuring it has adequate capital to meet all aspirations. Airport services provider Dreamfolks has spoken out after ICICI Bank and Axis Bank pulled back their key credit card programs. Speaking to CNBC TV 18, the company blames two major airport operators for pressurizing banks, but doesn't name the operators. Adani Airports, GMR and GBK are the top private airport operators in India. Shares of Dreamfolks declined today. The company provides lounge access and other premium services for travellers at airports and is present in more than 100 countries. Winnie Motiwala joins us now with more details. Winnie, what exactly is the issue here?
Absolutely. So what we understand, and this came in as a notification on BSE, was that certain programs for Axis Bank, ICICI Bank have been closed with effect from 1st of July 2025. Now, what they're highlighting that the contracts with both these clients overall are still active, other than the lounge services where there are some issues. So some of them have been closed is what the word came in. Now, do not forget the 93% of the revenue for the company comes in from lounge services, and 7% approximately comes in from non-lounge services. The management spoke to us today on CNBC TV 18, and what they are highlighting that, the notification for this cancellation of the services from Axis and ICICI Bank just came in few hours before the cancellation of the program. That was yesterday when the announcement came in. They said there was no information from the clients on the migration of the program before, and there are certain migrations that will happen. Some of the cards will still be with Dreamfolks, some of them will be migrated. The company also said that there were two major air operators who have entered the business, and which is putting pressure on the company in terms of their business. They also mentioned that the airport operators putting pressure on clients like ICICI Bank and Axis Bank, which has led to some of these cancellations coming in. The client also highlighted that they had to move from company's lounge program due to the airport operator pressure. Because of all these pressures coming in from two other operators, there was pressure on the clients as well, and that's why the shift that has come in. Company highlighted that obviously there are 70 plus airports or lounges where they're working on, but around currently 35 to 40% of the lounges are operated by these two major operators, so there could be some impact on this front. The lounge is one of the biggest business and revenue growth drivers for the company. They're focusing on new ones, but 93% of the revenue comes in from lounge services, and Axis Bank and ICICI Bank are one of those big clients, and they just got a notification few hours before that cancellation that happened yesterday. That's the word from the management.
It was a pressure which was getting built up to the clients. Okay, it was a pressure tactics which were done. So to be very upfront, it is mainly done by these two major airport operators who have now started getting into the similar business. The pressure which has been built up is to, tell the clients that, in case if they do not sign up with them or do business with them directly, they would actually stop their cardholder access to their airports. So this is a pressure which has been built up, and these are the reasons that why these clients had to move.
Dreamfolks, the lounge services company, accusing private airport operators of pressurizing them and getting banks to discontinue services. Up next, major victory for global cloud-based software firm Salesforce. The Supreme Court dismisses the tax department's petition seeking to tax subscription revenue from India as royalty. That and more when we return. A major tax victory for global cloud-based software firm Salesforce. The Supreme Court has dismissed the tax department's petition seeking to tax subscription revenue from India as royalty. Ashmit joins us now with more. Ashmit, take us through the contours of the case. This has, of course, been ruled on by the Delhi High Court, by the ITAT as well, and today the Supreme Court upholding the previous verdicts.
Well, indeed, Salesforce was under the IT department's scrutiny. The IT department was construing their income that they make here, subscription income that they make out of India, and was construing that to be a case of royalty, and then subsequently had sought to tax that. That was the argument that was first raised before the ITAT, then before the Delhi High Court, and then finally before the Apex Court is here as well. And constantly, what Salesforce has been arguing is that, look, they don't have a presence here. They have protection under the India-Singapore DTAA, going on to say that this is not, there is no case made out for royalty, as there is no transfer of copyright, that the users here in India are only provided a web-based access to the services that are provided by them, and therefore there is no case that has been made out as far as royalty is concerned or fees for technical use, and that is something that was upheld by the ITAT, next upheld by the Delhi High Court, and now Salesforce's contentions has now been upheld by the Apex Court as well. The Supreme Court saying that this is clearly not a fit case as far as royalty taxation is concerned, and therefore on that count dismissing the application that had been filed by the Income Tax Department. So a big reprieve coming in. The Income Tax Department was looking at a number of 7 to 8 assessment years it was looking at, and this could have translated into a big tax demand, but the Supreme Court coming to the rescue, saying that not a case of royalty and therefore not a fit case for taxation for royalty that was made out by the Income Tax Department. Back to you.
All right, Ashmit, appreciate you joining us. That's the latest there on the tax department's case against Salesforce. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. But we leave you with a sneak peek of the third episode of our show, Leadership Language, with the veteran of the finance industry, Keki Mistry. The full episode airs tonight at 5:30 p.m. Take a look.
My advice to a CFO is always be very cautious. It's not your P&L that is important, it's your balance sheet that's more important. And keep your balance sheet as safe, as secure as you can. See, I told you I joined HDFC
because it was a happy place.
It looked like a happy place to me, and it remained a happy place all through. The most important thing is keep politics out of the organization.
What was the compass that guided you?
Don't chase market share for the sake of chasing market share, because by chasing market share and having these short-term goals, you will do something which will go wrong. Never do anything which would make you feel even slightly nervous or slightly unhappy if it was reported in the newspapers the next morning. That was a mantra that we had followed at HDFC.
What excites you the most about the India growth story?
The growth that you will see in India, you do not see that in China or in any other part of the world. Forget the West.
I don't know how many people know this, but you actually did box a little bit in your youth.
In my college days. I lost my tooth here.
You did, and was that why you stopped?
That's why I stopped.
So what do you think that you took from those experiences and brought to the boardroom with you?
I think learn to lose also. It's not that every time in life you will win.